So that shows a couple of different scenes in the book, which kind of helps us to talk about some of the differences between the book and the movie. And most of those differences fall just with details being left out. For example, the film doesn't show that any of the girls have any brothers or sisters, when in the book that is mentioned. But for the most part, the movie is actually pretty true to the book because the author of the book was also the head screenwriter for the movie.
Some of the major scenes as well were in different locations. For example, the part that I read to you about the girls trying on the pants, I read that too as if they were in Carmen's room, but as you can tell from the trailer, that was actually taking place at the secondhand thrift store itself. So they did change some major locations, but as for the neutral lighting, throughout the movie, their clothing is pretty brightly colored, and I think that's exactly why the lighting was neutral, so that there wasn't a huge, it wasn't supposed to be a moody movie at all, or set a moody tone at all. So the lighting was neutral.
Yeah. The other thing that's pretty obvious in the movie is the differences in dialogue. Rather than showing a lot of obvious music in it, they show lots of laughter and lots of dialogue that's very quick. For example, the scene that we read in the book, the girls are talking in complete sentences.
They're each taking their turns talking too.
Whereas if you were to see that entire scene in the movie, they're talking over each other, they're laughing at each other.
They're kind of picking at each other, they're very playful with one another, where you couldn't really get that throughout the book when I was reading it.
Which is a helpful thing to show if you wanted to use this in a classroom. Obviously, the book is geared more towards girls. So assigning the entire novel to a classroom might be kind of a risky choice. But if you wanted to show a selection, like the way we just did, with reading it, and if you were to maybe show the entire scene from the movie, you might be able to talk about the differences in how the characters are developed, and how the relationships are shown. When reading it, we get less of a sense of how close they are, whereas in the movie, the way they interact, and their physical motions where they touch each other and they hug and they do things like that, you get a much better sense of how comfortable they are with one another.
So some of the things that we could do in the classroom with that is kind of focus on the dialogue in each representation of the stories. And we can focus on how that changes the perception of the girls and their relationships with one another. We can talk about, for example, how did the book and the film vary and what they revealed and disclosed about each of the girls. So what did the book want to show that the movie did not want to show, and vice versa. Another thing, how does the book and film vary and how they show the effects of positive and negative relationships with adult role models. So that's another huge thing, especially in the modern time with our literature. We have less positive role models. So how is that portrayed in this novel, especially with Carmen and her father and Bridget's mother who passed away? So how are they affected by that?
Another thing you can use in the classroom is symbolism. That is rampant in this book, especially with the pants. Even if you had them look at that, what do the pants stand for, and try to ask it as more of an open question. When we talked about this, we talked about presenting them with that symbol without any expectation for what it could mean, and leaving it to mean something different to many of our students. Because a lot of the things in this book are open to interpretation because they present it from the angle of 4 different girls. And the pants and other symbols stand for different things to each of those girls, just as they would to any of our students.
To wrap it up really quickly, 2 more things that we thought about doing with it is talking about the stereotypes that the girls have, and how they dress. They are all 4 completely different girls, so what are the stereotypes with each of their personalities? And is that true today? And kind of have them examine that. And lastly, one of the things I want to talk about is their different reactions to the different successes and triumphs in their life. How did they react to it? Was it realistic? Is it not how exactly you would picture them reacting based on their personality? And so we get to analyze those events and the psychological processes that the girls go through with dealing with them.
Essentially asking if this novel, which is realistic fiction, is actually realistic in any of
Even though they are magic pants.